Okay, so in this problem, they're talking about a report has been released that states that less than 35% of the adult residents in a certain city will be able to pass a physical fitness test. So the recreation department is trying to convince the city council that this is true. And the city council says, okay, if you can prove that it's true, that it's less than 35%, then we will fund more physical fitness programs. Okay, so that's why they set it up like this. Every year when I do this problem, a lot of students get confused because the very first sentence states less than. A lot of times in the problems we do, it'll tell you what we think it is first, and then it'll give you the alternative. But in this case, it's kind of flipped, so just a little bit weird there. All right, but again, you know the alternative should always be the one that says not equal to, less than, or greater. Okay? All right, so it says in part A, what is a type 2 error in this study? Okay, so in the context of this problem, and then what would be the consequences of that? So what I'm going to first do is just write down, you don't have to write this down yet, but I'm going to write down what a type 2 error is without any context. Okay, so a type 2 error, and again, you can write this down or not, it's up to you, is failing to reject the null hypothesis when you should have rejected it. Okay, so obviously if you wrote this down to answer this question and I was grading it, I would not give you full credit because this has no context, right? I'm saying that on purpose. All right, so I'll repeat that again. Type 2 error is failing to reject the null hypothesis when in fact you should have rejected it. So now let's try to bring in the context. We're saying that we're failing to reject the 35%. Okay, so that means we still think, what is the rate of adults who will pass a physical fitness test? 35%. All right, when in fact, what is it? It's lower. All right, so we're basically saying, all right, so I'll write that down. So in this problem, that would mean thinking the rate of adults who can pass a physical fitness test is 35% when in reality it is lower. So there's the context. So saying we think it's still 35%. That report was not, or the study, the 185? Yes, the 185 residents, after we tested them, was not enough evidence to reject the 35%. When in fact, it was enough evidence. And we should have rejected 35% and said that the rate is actually something lower than 35%. All right, so that's the first sentence in context. So now I'm going to open up to you guys. If that's true, if we decide that it's going to be 35%, but we're wrong, and it should have been lower, what are the consequences or implications of this? Ureth?
There's they're not going to be able to create a fitness program?
Exactly, right? The city council said, if you can prove that it's below 35%, we'll fund more programs. All right? But we just told them, you know what? We still think it's 35%. But we're wrong. All right? We don't know that. That's the tough part here, guys. Is we don't know that we're wrong. Okay? Bless you. So we're going to go to the city council and show them our results that, you know what? It's still 35%. So they're not going to fund any programs. So the consequence here is that the city council will not fund any physical fitness programs. Now, I don't know if that sentence is entirely true, right? They might be funding programs already. They're just not going to fund any new ones. Edgar, what word? I'm sorry. City. Council. Council. I'm sorry. I'll try again. Council. Okay, who has questions about how to answer that part A? Yes, you're right.
So you're not supposed to write like for the how you did it in the type.
Like this part here?
Yeah, you're not supposed. How would you write it instead?
I would just start here.
Oh, just start.
Yeah, so what I wrote for the first statement is not necessary, right? You would just say, in this problem, I guess I would say, in this problem, a type 2 error would mean.
Okay.
So I would like start out by saying something about the type 2 error for this problem. I just wrote that down because from yesterday, it's been almost a day. Just wanted you to remember what a type 2 error means with no context. Okay, can we move on to letter B? Okay, let's move on to letter B. So, letter B says they did the test with 185 adult residents who volunteered, and they got a p-value of 0.97. Now, I believe earlier in the problem, it said what alpha they chose, right? What alpha did they choose for this problem? 0.05. So, an alpha of 0.05. Now, I know it's been almost a week now since we've run a test, right? But if you think back to last week, if alpha is 0.05 and our p-value is 0.97, what should we conclude? Well, it's a one-tailed test, right? I know it's a one-tailed test because it said less than in that. So I'd actually, look at this p-value though. I'd be shading to the left, but 0.97 is going to be like almost all of it, right? Guys, p-value of 0.97 is what? That's really big, okay? Remember, I'm looking to see if p-values are below 0.05. That's when I reject the null hypothesis. So do I have enough evidence to reject the 35%? I don't. So my conclusion would state something like, with a p-value well above alpha, I will fail to reject the null hypothesis. I do not have enough evidence to claim the rate of adults who can pass a physical fitness test is below 35%. So that last statement is basically just saying, in context of the problem, I do not have enough evidence to claim that this rate, so of the adults who can pass a physical fitness test, is below 35%. So what do I think it still is? Very good, Dave. I still think it's 35%. So that last sentence could also have been stated something like, based on these results, I still think that the rate is 35%. Okay? Something like that. Now, this is not a part of the problem, all right? But just one thing that I noticed in reading this is they got volunteers to take a physical fitness test. So I'm just thinking in my mind, okay, about people who are volunteering for a physical fitness test. Who's volunteering for a physical fitness test? Really? I think people that are in shape would volunteer for it. I'm not going to go do that, all right? I think exercise stinks, and something's wrong with it because it makes my body hurt. Right? Why would I go do something that makes my body ache? That sounds bad. Fair enough, right? But if they wanted that to be true, then they're trying to recruit people who would not pass it. All right? So it doesn't say that's what they did. I have no idea. I know personally that when I read volunteer for a test, that could lead to problems. Right? Because if I'm the city council and Jarvis, you come give me your report that says, hey, look, I got 185 people to do it, and I have enough evidence to say it's below, then I'm like, okay, can you show me the list of people? And I found out you only went to people who have not exercised in the last 7 years. Okay, well, that's a problem. Okay? But if you can show me it's a good representation, everyone, then I'm cool with it. All right. Let's move to the next page.